In the last several episodes, we have been exploring the fighting at Chickamauga as it progressed throughout the day of September 19th of 1863. We started our journey at Jay's Mill, where advanced elements from both armies would stumble into each other. Then, things quickly escalated as the fighting moved southwest down the Brotherton Road to an area known as Winfrey Field. In this area, being outflanked was a constant occurrence due to the thick forests of northwest Georgia. Come noon, the fighting continued southwest down the Brotherton Road to an area known as Brock Field. Neither side was able to gain a clear advantage. The next area of contention was where the Brotherton Road and the Lafayette Road meet. Although short-lived, it is here that Confederate forces under the command of Alexander Stewart were finally able to break through the Union line. Simultaneously, while Stewart's division was attacking, fighting began to break out south along the Lafayette Road in an area called Vineyard Field. This area would see some of the fiercest fighting as the chaotic nature of Chickamauga was on full display. As darkness was approaching, both sides essentially held the same ground. We now shift our focus back to Winfrey Field. This area of the battlefield had been quiet for several hours as the fighting progressively moved southward, but it would soon be engulfed in chaos and death. Night fighting during the American Civil War wasn't a common occurrence, but when it did happen, it was often met with chaos and confusion. Well, there was a division under the command of Major General Patrick Cleburne getting ready to launch an assault against Union positions behind me on the camera here at Winfrey Field, just as dusk was settling in here at the Battle of Chickamauga. Now, we are here at Winfrey Field. Now, this was the site of fighting at numerous points here during the Battle of Chickamauga. Earlier in the day on September 19th of 1863, you had fighting in this general area between Mulhall's Mississippi Brigade and a brigade under the command of Benjamin Scribner. Now fast forward to 6 p.m. on September 19th of 1863, Confederate General Patrick Cleburne was receiving orders to drive back Union forces still holding Winfrey Field. Now simultaneously, Major General George Thomas made a decision to pull back his forces slightly to the west to what was considered a superior defensive position. Come nightfall, his forces would begin pulling back to the area of the Elijah Kelly farm. Two of Thomas's divisions under the command of Richard Johnson and Absalom Baird were to hold their positions and cover Thomas's forces' withdrawal. Not expecting any more fighting, neither commander knew Cleburne's Confederate forces were advancing right towards our current position. Now, Patrick Cleburne would position his three brigades as follows. He would have Brigadier General Lucius Polk on the right, he would have Brigadier General Sterling Wood in the center, and on the left he would have Brigadier General James Desslers on the left. So his division would stretch all along this position here. And what you're seeing is a portion of Winfrey Field to the front, and it would cross over, extending past the Brotherton Road in this general direction here. Now, keep in mind, you're seeing a Confederate artillery position. Just know that this artillery position was not here at the time of Cleburne's night attack. Now, once the attack was commenced, Cleburne did have artillery batteries brought up to the roadway here. His men used the cover of darkness to bring these batteries within about 50 to 60 yards of the Union line here. So remember, the Union troops were positioned all along this wood line here. So these Confederate batteries started hurling shells essentially point blank into the Union lines here. So we are facing the route of Cleburne's advance, and emerging from this wood line would have been Brigadier General Sterling Wood's Mississippi Brigade. So they would have been coming straight at us on the camera here. Now, occupying this general area were the 1st Ohio Skirmishers, and they began trying to make out the ghostly figures appearing in the distance here. And shortly after that, they opened fire on Wood's Mississippi Brigade, and confusion would follow quickly with the darkness setting here. Half of Wood's brigade would stop to return fire. The other half of Wood's brigade lowered their rifles and began charging across Winfrey Field here. So as you can see, the attack just started, and there's already a little bit of confusion with one of the Confederate brigades. Now, confusion was also affecting the Union side as well. You got to think, once the 1st Ohio opened fire on the ghostly figures in the distance, and the Confederates began returning fire, this area was already dark enough, so now it's filling with smoke. It's probably really hard to tell friend from foe. So we're closer to the Union line here. Here is the general area of where the 1st Ohio Infantry was positioned. Again, they had their skirmishers out in front of their regiment here. And up in this general direction is where the Union would be positioned, kind of in the same area as Benjamin Scribner's brigade earlier in the day here before they were routed. So we've moved down the line just a bit, and just so you're keeping track of where we are, the 1st Ohio was in that direction here. We're in the position of the 93rd Ohio Infantry, and I'm going to pan to my left. So this is the Union line here. Panning to my left, we're facing Winfrey Field, and again, we would have had the Mississippi Brigade emerging to our front. Now, again, with night fighting, there was a lot of confusion in this area. And sensing that confusion was going against him, Colonel Philemon Baldwin would grab the colors of his old regiment, the 93rd Ohio. He would ride to the front of his brigade and yell, "Follow me." Instantly, he would fall from his horse dead. Baldwin's men would quickly break after seeing their commander struck down, and this portion of the Union line was now in jeopardy. Now, as if the Battle of Chickamauga wasn't confusing enough, now we're fighting at night, and now our brigade commander is now dead. So you can just imagine being a Union soldier on this line. It's already hard enough to tell friend from foe. It's dark, there's smoke filling the air, screams of the wounded, and now your commander's down. And again, you're just kind of stuck in that vortex of confusion here at Chickamauga. But it's important to note that both sides have to deal with the darkness, and we're going to hop over to another part of the line here of Cleburne's night attack.
Confusion quickly filled the battlefield. The darkness and smoke made it almost impossible for soldiers to see. Some Confederate troops advanced while others stopped to fire. A member of the 93rd Ohio Infantry stated, "The fight now raged in deadly earnest. The firing of musketry and artillery was one unceasing roll, while the canopy of smoke that hung like a pall overhead." As visibility worsened, men from both sides began firing into friendly units. One soldier from the 33rd Alabama noted that laggards persisted in shooting from the rear of the front part of our line, and some of our men killed Adjutant A.M. Moore by shooting him in the neck accidentally from the rear.
Right, we have moved, so let's reorient like we always do. Winfrey Field is probably 200 to 300 yards in this direction. We moved southwest, and right now we are along the Alexander Bridge Road. Now, in the area of Winfrey Field, we touched on Brigadier General Sterling Wood's Mississippi Brigade, and they were striking Philemon Baldwin's brigade in that area. Well, making up Cleburne's left flank, Brigadier General James Deschler's Texas Brigade. Remember, this attack is taking place at night, so it's important to realize that there's a lot of confusion here. So Deschler's Texas Brigade inadvertently began drifting to the south, which essentially opened up a gap in this general area here. So right here, there was absolutely no one attacking the Union line here, and we're going to see what happens next. So we're standing in the general area where the 77th Pennsylvania Infantry was manning the Union line, except there was absolutely no one attacking the Union line here. So we just touched on how James Deschler's Texas Brigade began drifting left. We were just about 100 yards in this direction here. We moved into the wood line, and this area of the line, like we just touched on, was manned by the 77th PA, and there was nobody to their front, at least not yet. Now, in support of Patrick Cleburne's night attack here was a brigade under the command of Preston Smith from Cheatham's division. So he unknowingly filled this gap here, still thinking that he was supporting the attack. So his column, or brigade I should say, was not in lines of battle. They were in support, and they would come through this general area here. Now, Smith was riding in front of his brigade when he started to make out dark figures to his front. Well, those dark figures were the 77th Pennsylvania Infantry here. So he would call out, asking who their commanding officer was. And in turn, he would receive a volley from the 77th PA. And this unfortunate discovery would make Preston Smith the first Confederate general killed in action here at Chickamauga. Now, Smith's brigade would eventually surge forward and capture a majority of the 77th PA, like you're seeing here on the depiction of their monument here. You can see the 77th firing, and you can see Preston Smith on horseback in the background falling. So that occurred right here in this general area, all because there was a gap opened up in the Confederate line, and the support brigade had no idea that they were about to walk right into Union infantry. And you can just see the close proximity between Brigadier General Preston Smith and the position held by the 77th PA.
Bowing our heads and grasping our guns firmly, we plunged into the vortex of hell. Yelling like demons, we dashed at the Federals and soon had them flying. Private William Oliphant, 6th Texas Infantry.
Now, despite the chaotic nature of night fighting in the 19th century, Patrick Cleburne's attack here at Chickamauga did succeed. He drove the Union back from the Brotherton Road and the area of Winfrey Field. However, this attack proved to be unnecessary because there were already plans for the Union to pull back to a different position surrounding Kelly Field. So it was only a matter of time before this area was vacated by those Union troops. But in the end, his attack did succeed. Hope you learned a thing or two, because like always I did, and I definitely learned that I wanted no part of night fighting during the American Civil War.
Although brief, this chaotic and intense fight finally marked an end to the fighting on September 19th of 1863. These once peaceful forests of northwest Georgia were now witness to some of the bloodiest fighting of the war. Men from both sides were in for a long and cold night. Men huddled together for warmth, since fires were prohibited. Sounds of the wounded filled the night air, keeping many men awake.